Let's
Well,
rock and
welcome
roll.
everybody to our bi-week webinar. I'm co-host Ryan Poole. For people that I don't know, I'm a real estate agent just like you all. Been doing this over 20 years. It's an interesting time right now with the market. It's definitely some challenges. I'm sure Jim's going to share some of that, but we're excited. I host this bi-week webinar with Jim to add value to agents. We cover some amazing topics. He shepherded us. Jim has helped shepherd us here through a bunch of challenges here in the last year, especially with the NAR settlement. I know you're going to be touching on that today as well, but to it, people that don't know, I'm also the founder of RealTrade, which is an online marketplace and social media platform for real estate. As Jim likes to say, we're the home of the double dip. It's free for agents to sign up. You can get leads, imagine this, directly off your listings. And then we have a whole social component where you can connect with awesome service providers like Jim and some great lenders, title companies, inspectors, appraisers, contractors, all that kind of good stuff. But hey, excited to do this one with you, Jim. I know there's obviously with the NAR settlement, I know you're going to touch on this show, and also some stuff about tax liens and all that kind of crazy stuff for the IRS. So we're excited for this one. Let's rock and roll.
I appreciate that, Ryan. I spent a lot of time putting this stuff together. As you guys know, I want to go through my little monologue to start. My goal is to bring you content you won't hear or find anyplace else. I think I do a pretty good job of providing a unique perspective. You can listen to anybody, anywhere, anytime, and I try to do as much research as I can before the shows and get you guys unique perspectives. I'm going to mention something that I feel strongly about, and I'm going to dwell on it just for a second. Crossing for cystic fibrosis. So we are departing today or we're departing tomorrow morning for the Crossing for Cystic Fibrosis. This event does so much good for the world. We are the largest provider. We are the largest single fundraiser in the world now. I've been doing this personally this will be my 9th year. I've got 8 crossings under my belt. I want to get to 10 and obviously continue on. We do this event, and the next day after the event is over, I get all kinds of texts, messages, heartwarming stories, anecdotes. Like every year, this is a lot of work for me and it's a lot of money. And every year I say to myself in the back of my mind, I don't say it out loud, this is going to be my last year just because it's so much work and so much money. And at the end of the year, at the end of the event, rather, my cup of goodness is so overflowing.
It's awesome.
It takes me 12 months to get off that high, and then I start thinking about, do I want to do it again? And then as soon as we get back in the groove, I start getting the messages from the crew. We have a woman that she's returning to paddle with us this year. Her name is Shannon Lockhart. She got 2nd overall and top female a couple years ago. We've hosted more podium finishers than any other boat. We've hosted more. We've raised more money. There are a couple teams that raise a lot of money, but we're pretty much a grassroots team. We're not connected. There's a great shot from a couple years ago.
Yeah.
We're not strongly connected on the corporate front. And so this is a real grassroots effort that our personal program puts on. So I'm going to send you guys all a link, and I'm going to ask you to donate a little bit. And I'm not looking for money for me. It's going to be a link. I'm going to email it to you. It's money for the kids that are beneficiaries of the cystic fibrosis programs that we provide. And there are some incredible medical advances that are occurring right now. And we provide places for the parents to live while their kids are getting treatments, and all kinds of fun stuff for the kids to do that are afflicted. And I can't say enough about the program. Travis Suit, the fellow who started it, he's an amazing guy. If you've ever wanted to do something that just makes you feel good, on Sunday we're going to be coming into the beach at Lake Worth. You sit in the
Yeah.
sand, you have fun with your kids or your significant other or by yourself, and you watch the paddlers come in. I guarantee you will walk away from this thing with a smile on your face and spend a day on the beach. What could be better, right?
I
And,
know.
and then the icing on the cake would be you head home from the event on Sunday and you click on the link I'm going to send you, and you send some money to Crossing for Cystic Fibrosis. So I bust my ass for you guys, trying to get you guys original content. I don't want anything for me. I want you guys to give to the crossing for CF if you can. If you can't, understandable.
That's all.
Um, Title advances. Just saw another deal saved with the title advance. Got a call from the real estate agent. They said, "Oh my God, I was able to set expectations properly and I won the listing appointment when I showed up with my title advance." They work. We're going to get a platform going pretty shortly where the title advances will go out quicker and you will get them within minutes to an hour instead of a few hours. If you liked our content, please go to YouTube, like and subscribe. And our closing cost calculators are updated. You guys have heard that before. There are no dumb questions. After the show, I get texts from people all the time and they say, I didn't want to ask during the show, but can you explain this to me? You guys, I cannot stress enough the value of sitting in groups and hashing out ideas, because I guarantee you, if you have a question, your colleagues have the same question. And so every Monday at our office, we sit around and we probe each other with the transactions that are causing us friction, and we talk about the rules that govern the issues. And I myself, not that I'm the authority by any means, but I myself had 2 rules wrong. And so what it causes me to do is, we were having the discussion. I told the group, our staff, the rules that I thought were in place. One was on surplus and the other one was on, I don't remember what the other one was, but anyways, foreclosure, surplus, and lien priority. Anyways, I went back, did a little research. Had I not been challenged in the group, I would not have learned the rules properly, and I recited it to the group. And so now everybody knows. And the same magic happens here. You guys have a question. You think you're the only person in the room that has that question. You ask the question in a public forum. You get an answer. I can almost guarantee you that there are people in this room that are going to benefit from that answer, and they're afraid to ask, or they it left their mind or whatever. So there are no dumb questions. Everybody's safe here. Put it in the chat. If you want to text me after the session, I'm totally happy with that. But if you want to talk about it during the session, I guarantee you it'll bring value to everybody else. This is a bold ask. If you guys can turn on your cameras, if you feel safe doing that, I'd love to see your faces, because it helps me understand when what I'm talking about resonates and when it's not. Question and answers at the end. And that's it. Text me any questions you have. Oh, Jessica's just coming in. Jessica, you missed my shameless plug for crossing for cystic fibrosis, and I don't want you to give to me. I want you to give to the group. So if you're logging in now and you missed my shameless plug, that was what you've missed so far. All right. Anything you want to mention, Ryan, before we jump into it?
No, excited for this. I was telling everybody too, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or ask them in the chat. And also too, this outline along with the recording is going to be emailed to everybody that attends. So you'll have that.
No need to write this stuff down. It's all going to come in it's going to get served in your lap. If you don't get it for any reason and you want it, text me and I'll be happy to send it to you. All right, so today we're talking about the IRS has a little known gift waiting for your clients with tax issues. I can't tell you how much this has changed my life personally for financial reasons. So I'm happy to empower you and impart my knowledge. Today is June 17th. If your client owes the IRS tax money, this show is invaluable. I've seen it in action firsthand. Did I mention personally? I've seen it in action firsthand. I run several limited liability companies, and we recently had the IRS confuse our tax ID number. That resulted in an immediate $10,000 penalty and a lot of struggle. And we'll get into shortly how that worked out and the benefit to the group. It wasn't me personally, but I was a member of the LLC and I was the manager. If you have not already done so, okay, another shameless crossing for cystic fibrosis plug. And here is the link. You can just click on there. It says donate in the top right corner, but I'm also going to email you guys and ask you to give. We're racing Saturday night, so I'll get back Sunday afternoon, and it'd be wonderful if you guys could give. We talked about texting me 24/7 with any questions. I don't care whether I'm your closing agent or not. if you guys have questions, don't hesitate to text me 24/7. I'll be happy to answer anything you have. If you like the way we work, in paragraph 20, write the closing agent is new path title. I guarantee you I'll save you time in your deal. I guarantee you there's going to be something along the way to closing that you can ask me that helps out, and you don't shift costs. If you represent a buyer and you want us to make the title agent, write it in paragraph 20 and leave the seller paying for title, and there will be no financial difference to your client if you're the buyer's agent. And does everybody know, by show of hands, but I can't see your cameras, that there is a difference between the escrow agent and the closing agent? These are defined terms in the contract. I still get agents calling me. I had one yesterday that said, oh no, the closing agent is written in the upper paragraph of the contract. No, that's the escrow agent. The closing agent is defined in the standards further down the form. All right, here's your marketing tip. I want to do a marketing tip and a market tip every show. Send a message, make some social media content, become authority in your sphere. And the message you want to send out is, if you owe the IRS money, they have a gift waiting for you. So you can take the content that we're going to put together today, and you can use this to send to your database, social media, whatever you want. And Federico now will be the person that they contact. Hey, tell me more about how I can get this IRS benefit. So you send out, oh, Jessica's coming back in. So you send out a message. It's not going to resonate with 9 out of 10. The numbers are staggering of people who owe money to the IRS. The good people, they're not bad people. I've owed money to the IRS. I've fallen in that category. It's people, I won't say they're victims, but you know, you do a lot of business and stuff falls through the cracks, or for whatever reason, you owe the money IRS. This program will get them out of that situation potentially. And now Fed becomes the person top of mind they think of, and they're going to come and contact Fed. Oh, tell me more about the program. And that just starts opportunity for dialogue and all the good stuff. Every piece of social media, every piece of content that I'm going to give to you guys can be spun into a marketing opportunity. And I'm getting texts from agents every single day. I had a conversation with one on Sunday, Father's Day. Their Father's Day gift to themselves was they were getting out of the business. This is the time to double down. And we're going to talk about in a second why that is the case. But this is the time to double down on your skill set. This is the time to double down on what you've spent the last several years honing your craft and becoming a go-to top-of-mind person in this marketplace. And here's why. Inventory nationwide. These are some scary stuff to start with, but then it actually builds to a crescendo and you're going to like the ending. Inventory nationwide is on track to substantially outpace the high water mark from last year. It's just reality. October 2024, it was 950,000 homes in active inventory. This is 30% more than the active inventory from a year prior. Full stop. 30% more. And this year is going to outpace that. May 2025, we're already at 1 million homes in active inventory. This is all nationwide stuff, obviously. And the typical summer months, we typically add 30,000 homes a month in active inventory. Consumer sentiment is bruised. There's no doubt about it. It's just reality. It doesn't matter what political affiliation you are, people are scared. Fannie Mae is forecasting a gradual downturn, however, in rates, with the year closing out at potentially near 6%. There is a further softening in the jobs report. In the latest jobs report, there was increased softening, but the Fed reduces interest rates based on the softening. So that's a double-edged sword. There's a ton of money sitting on the sidelines waiting for the country to stabilize. When you start peeling back the numbers on the demographic of buyers that are waiting to upsize, waiting to get into the market, waiting to do their thing, the numbers are all over the board. But I was going to include some numbers, but I was reluctant to start stating particular numbers, but everything leans towards pent-up money sitting on the sidelines waiting for stabilization. There's a ton of pent-up demand sitting on the sidelines waiting to see what happens. In time, consumers become numb to the fantastic headlines, come out to play. Even if it's not safe to play, it feels safer because they're just used to the huge headlines. It's just reality. When we go through periods of turmoil in the country, the first couple of bombs that land in our lap, no pun intended, everybody runs for cover. But then after a while, it just becomes, and history proves this, it becomes part of the dialogue. It becomes part of the narrative, and people aren't so shocked anymore. Do I think it's great? No, we're just talking about objective.
Yeah, I want to add something too. Is I've worked with years with institutional investors, large funds buying real estate, and let me tell you right now, they're buying. They're buying. They're looking for opportunities right now, and usually those institutional buyers are ahead of the curve versus your more retail buyer. So they're buying right now, Jim.
They're looking for increased demand coming up. They're buying
Yeah.
now because they're seeing the opportunities. We
Yeah.
talked about it last week. Another great social media message or email blast campaign. The message is now's the time to come out. If you're considering buying, now's the time to come out of the woodwork and buy. There's more inventory than ever. The good news, this is a recipe for a strong fall market. If nothing else, the recipe for a stronger fall market. Buyers can only wait so long. Sellers that have been waiting to sell but have to sell will get in with even more inventory. So there's a whole nother statistic of shadow sellers that are sitting waiting to see. We all know what's going on with buyers. They're waiting to see. But the thing we don't even talk about are the shadow sellers that are sitting back waiting to see. If sellers are thinking about selling, another message is now's the time to list because there's only going to be more sellers soon. There's a shadow inventory of sellers and there's numbers all over the board. Demand pushes prices up, inventory pushes them down, but all we care about is sales volume. So when everybody's talking about doom and gloom as agents, we're saying these are great opportunities for us. Pent-up sales are real and prices may fall, but sales will occur. Now here's the local good news. The steady migration of people from the Northeast communities continues and it has slowed some, but it is still real. The effect on the local markets is undeniable. Anecdotally, we see more out-of-state buyers of bigger homes. Our firm does everything from trailer homes, literally, to we're doing a $10 million Palm Beach sale in a couple of weeks, several weeks, and we do everything in between. And we see more out-of-state buyers than ever. Another piece of great news for the South Florida market, older people are staying in the market longer, buying more second and third homes than anticipated, and buying nicer homes and spending more. We hear downsizing, but the data is showing that older people are buying, they are downsizing, but they're buying more homes and they're buying nicer homes and they're spending more than anticipated. All cash buyers are up 26% in South Florida. That's the migration effect. 26% year over year.
I'm seeing that too with some buyers that I'm working with in the Northeast that are paying cash as they sold their homes in the Northeast.
Yeah.
They got a great price for it and they're sitting on a bunch of cash looking to purchase homes now in South Florida.
If you sell your house in Rockville Center, Long Island, and it's one of the most densely populated places in the United States, so there's a lot of homes. Your median home sale is eclipsing $2 million, a million, just shy of $2 million. They can come down here, pay off that mortgage if they have any, and you guys see it. It's not anecdotal, but we see it all the time. It's real. It's the migration and the move out of the Northeast. Millennials and Gen Zs are entering their prime home buying years with greater force than anticipated. The median home buyer age in South Florida is dramatically younger than the national average. I started drilling down on this morning when I started looking at the stats. I don't even want to quote the numbers because they seemed so far-fetched to me, where the median age for the nation and the median age for the Florida market was so spread apart. But millennials, 90% of this group still believe home ownership is key to wealth building. And 75%, I didn't finish it because the show got launched, 75% of them still think it's attainable. So we're in a tough spot right now. Attainable, not obtainable. We're in a tough spot right now, but all signs are pointing up, and it's a matter of how long we're going to kind of wallow in this place. And it's the typical summer doldrums, but the reality is we're setting ourselves up, I believe, in South Florida for a good fall. And I don't want to say a strong fall, but certainly a stronger fall. But I'll go out on a limb and I'll say a strong fall. A strong fall. I don't know about condos, but all right, here's our main topic for today. We're going to do two topics. We're going to do the IRS abatement, and I brain dumped with you guys last week, and we really covered, I'm going to go out on a limb again, and I'm going to say probably too much material for one show. So I'm going to give you a shortcut to the closing checklist, and it'll just be a simple list you guys can use, and over and over and over. So the main topic, first time IRS abatement. If I had not seen it with my own eyes, I would not have believed it. Does your client owe the IRS money and can't buy a home? They may qualify for first time abatement. Great piece of social media content. The stats on people who owe the money IRS in South Florida is staggering. Staggering. If you send this message out, if you make yourself a social media authority on this topic, you're going to get people who reach out to you, period, end of story, wanting to know how it works. If your client has a history of good tax compliance, generally, and I've seen exceptions where they're still giving this gift, they have no penalties on the same filing for 3 years. That doesn't say that they don't own other LLCs that have or don't have problems. Each taxpayer ID is a separate event, and we can drill down that a little bit more in a few minutes. They've never applied for an abatement prior, and the penalty is not a result of an electronic federal tax payment failure. There are a few more technical criteria, but generally speaking, if they have no penalties on the same filing for 3 years and they've never applied for an abatement prior, then your client may qualify for an IRS first-time abatement. Now, we talked about a social security number. So I'll tell you a personal story. I don't mind. And I mentioned this earlier. I'll mention it again. I have a personal taxpayer ID. I am also the manager of several LLCs that have their own taxpayer IDs. So they don't appear on my personal schedule. We applied for a separate EIN number. They are not me. They're not, they're disregarded entities, but they're not me personally. So you can have an LLC, and that LLC can have the taxpayer ID of Ryan Poole personally, or that LLC can have its own independent taxpayer ID. Most people have their LLCs filed under their name personally, under their taxpayer ID personally, but you can have a separate taxpayer ID. I don't know what the stats are, but all mine have separate taxpayer IDs. So let's just imagine I'm the manager of an LLC, and that LLC has a tax liability to the IRS because they confused our tax IDs and whacked us very quickly with a $10,000 penalty. The IRS screwed up our tax IDs and whacked us with a penalty, and we applied for a first-time abatement. This particular entity had other tax issues that were older than 3 years, and they gave us the abatement on the $10,000. It was easier and quicker to get the abatement on the $10,000 than to fight with the IRS on the merits, to prove that they screwed up. We filed the abatement. 2 months later, they gave us the $10,000, $10,000 relief, and now that entity can buy again. It can get loans again. It's the same exact thing for people. I'll give you another example in a minute, because the examples, I hope, are what stick with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I give you the abatement website here. The forms and instructions are available on this site. It's pretty straightforward. There is a ton of technical discussion here that I'm not going to say you can ignore, but it's not designed to steer your clients clear, but this is the website that you want to give your clients if you do the email campaign and the social media campaign so that you look like the authority. The abatements can be requested over the phone. It's not been my experience, but I've been told by other people that they've actually had situations where the relief was actually granted in that or a follow-up phone call.
Wow.
Now, it sounds a little too fantastic for me, and I don't recommend you do it, but I have heard that people have called, and the IRS phone number is in that link I gave you, and had relief on the phone while they called. I recommend the taxpayer send in a form requesting the abatement. They have a specific form. I gave you the link to the form, or a third party can make a request on behalf of the taxpayer, your CPA or your attorney. And then here's a link for that form. You give those links to your client in your email blast. The power of attorney does not have to be a CPA, so accountants, office managers, bookkeepers can also do this. Agents should not do this for their client. Personal story. I had a client, they missed a FERP filing deadline. They spent 2.5 years and thousands of dollars on CPAs and accountants. The fines were growing daily and up to almost $20,000 on a $10,000 penalty. The IRS was continually sending notices to the taxpayer, and the file was in review and needed another 60 days to give an opinion. This went on for over a year. Then the other day, I just happened to have lunch with a really knowledgeable CPA who told me about the abatement opportunity. Right after lunch, I filed the abatement request myself over the phone. Within a couple of days, got 100% relief. The next day, in 40 years of dealing with the IRS, I never saw anything like this.
Wow.
Never. So it's real and it works. And I think you guys could make connections just by advertising messages like this. If you look up the stats on people who owe money to the IRS, again, it's just amazing. All right. Does anybody have any questions about the IRS abatement? I would love to make this a longer pod, but I don't want to because it's pretty self-explanatory. You're in good standing with the IRS. You haven't had penalties or issues with the last 3 years, and your filings are on time, and you send a request for abatement. If you get denied, you're not going to get hurt by the IRS. I have not seen one denied and I don't know about a ton of them, but I don't know anybody who's been denied where the facts were legit. Good on filing, first time request. They always seem to get granted.
Is there a maximum on the amount that they'll abate?
I don't know a maximum. I've seen some that are in excess of $100,000, and I've seen many that are around 50 and a little bit less. As soon as you start talking about this stuff, people ask you about it, and then this has been my experience. As soon as I talk about it, people go out and make requests, and then they thank me for the information. And I always ask, how much were you abated? And some of these abatements are large, and they happen quick. Like you have somebody who wants to buy in the fall, and they're doing their abatement now. They want to buy in the fall. They could be a buyer this fall. They happen that quick.
So, I mean, just to be clear, I mean, does that amount goes away?
There is no tax liability on that amount, and the amount goes away.
I mean, it's incredible.
In
Like,
my personal experience, the $10,000 for the entity, like I said, it was easier to ask for the abatement than it was to fight the IRS that they had lost, that they had confused the numbers. There were two entities or three entities with very similar names. And it was easier just to ask for the abatement, and the application was made and the abatement was returned to us within, I want to say, 2 months.
wow. Teresa has a question. This abatement only applies to penalties or tax due not paid.
It
Is that
applies to penalty. You mean like getting money back if you overpaid? No.
okay?
Maybe I didn't answer your question though. Is that the question?
This abatement only applies to penalties or tax due not paid. Please confirm.
Teresa, if you want to go live, I'm happy to answer. All right, no worries. Next topic. I brain dumped on you guys last session and I kind of felt bad coming away because I got a whole bunch of agents texting me and they said, Jim, you usually do a great job, but usually we walk away with a lot clearer understanding of what you want us to do. And I got 3 or 4 texts, 5 texts that way, and it wasn't a big turnout on the show. So I have a feeling I overstimulated the crowd. So I wanted to break down today into just a couple of rules that you guys could have as check boxes. So when you go on your listing appointment, you've got a simple checklist you can cut and paste. You're going to get the outline, and then you have something you can work from that's going to give you, a real tool for production, not just theoretical stuff to work from. Then if you want to, you can go back to the outline and you can see where we talked about that one particular point. So here's your listing checklist for the best closing. By best, what do I mean? The least effort. Everybody says, why am I so involved in closing? The only answer ever is, well, are we perfect? No, we're not perfect. Does stuff get misplaced or whatever, mismanaged? Yeah, every once in a while it absolutely happens. But 99% of the time, it's issues that could have been resolved prior to closing. And so what does that look like? Do your regular listing prep, market study, market plan, and personal record. People love personal records. I'm sure you know this, but I'm going to say it anyways. If you have successes, people love to hear about those successes. I don't know if they love to hear about them, but it definitely bolsters your personal brand. Get a title advance. Is there equity? How much? Understand the business side. Can't stress enough how many agents enter into transactions and they don't understand the business side of things. If you understand the business side, you're going to understand the seller's compulsions. If there's a bunch of fat mortgages that have to get paid off and there's maybe 5 or 10 grand coming back to the seller, are they as motivated to sell as the person that's looking at a $30,000, $300,000 or $400,000 payout in the sale? Of course not. Different motivations. Look at the deed. Who needs to sign the listing agreement and the closing docs? Takes 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes to look at the deed and figure out that landscape ahead of time. How long has the seller been in title? Lots of things can be revealed by how long the seller has been in title, including my favorite that I keep seeing over and over again, seller financing. If you have a seller that's been in title for a long time and they have a mortgage that's paid off or very small and they want to offer seller financing, I'd love to hear somebody tell me, because I've mentioned it several times recently, what the benefit is to the seller if they give seller financing. Let's say, and they're downsizing or they want to take the money off the table or something like that. What's the huge benefit for the seller if they offer seller financing and receive payments over time?
It's not a big tax event.
Deferred capital gains. But
Yeah.
you're only going to know that, and you're only going to be able to drop that bomb on the table with your client if you did a title advance and you know how long they've been in title. Is this work? Yes, this is work. But this is what distinguishes you from the other 3 or 4 agents, sometimes 5 or 6 agents that your seller's interviewing. So you drop the title advance, you understand the equity, you understand how long they've been in title. I don't care whether they're a seller financing deal or not. The fact that Fed is walking into the room and mentioning this ahead of time distinguishes him as the superior agent. I know agents right now that have 26 listings that I talked to one on Sunday. They have 26 listings and they said it was the easiest thing. They walked in there and they came up with some unique thing about the property that the seller said, oh my God, I hadn't heard that before from the other, several agents I interviewed. That's how you create value. That's how you get the listing. Sorry if I get all passionate. I love this stuff, you guys. So
That's good stuff.
I'm a title agent and attorney, but I really get into the agent journey. How long has the seller been entitled? Possible seller financing. Generate a net sheet. We have the link I gave you here, generate a net sheet. Don't walk in without one. I got a call from an agent. We've been working for this agent for 20 years. They called me last night. Oh, send me a net sheet. All they have to do is click in a new path title and grab their net sheet. And you can do them live at the table. If it's a multifamily, confirm this is a big headache, headache cutter offer, for lack of a better term. Understand the land use and zoning of your property. Is the zoning important? No. You're not doing commercial deals. It's zoned properly. But the land use is incredibly critical. If the property is only permitted as a single family, do not list it as a multifamily. It's right there on the property appraiser's website. It gives you two delineations. I can't tell you how many people, how many agents have told me, oh, it's zoned multifamily. Yeah, but it's not land use multifamily. It's not permitted multifamily. There's two delineations in that little caption, and they're in every county, municipality, property appraiser's site that I've seen. So don't make that mistake. And that's fatal, because then the lenders won't lend and the buyer's upset and everybody expected something and you burned a lot of calories. You got to educate your seller ahead of time. At the list, so this is the stuff you do before you get to the listing appointment. At the listing appointment, before the seller signs the listing agreement, do your typical listing presentation and present title advance to show your value. So you're gonna have those discussions that distinguish you as the agent. You're gonna show them your title advance. At the listing appointment or shortly after the listing appointment, and we're talking about in the context of a smooth closing, you're gonna follow up or you're gonna do it while you're there. Have the equity math conversation, use title advance as the lien reference. So you're not telling them they have no equity before you get them to sign, but after you get them to sign, you want to have that conversation. You want to drop the title advance before they sign, so they sign up with you, but then you want to have a tough conversation if there is a tough one to be had. Hey, I see there are code compliance issues, mortgages, judgments. Just because that stuff's going to be a headache. Are we going to have it with the seller? Yeah, but we're not going to have it with the seller until the contract comes to us. If you have it early, you're going to cut off a bunch of issues. And an agent sat in this podcast with me last year, and they ordered a title advance several months ago, and they had this conversation, this exact conversation with their seller about the equities. And we took care of some of the problems that they had on the property, then they had a smooth closing. But had they not had that conversation, they would have gone under contract, canceled the contract, had to fix the title issues, and then gone back under contract. This way here, we took care of this stuff early. We were on cruise control, or the agent was on cruise control, and when all the title issues were fixed, then we sold the property. We had two of those recently. We have a new young attorney, Matt Schultz. He's on it. He answers the phone all the time, and he's less expensive than me, and he resolves stuff. So you're going to have the equity math conversation right after and the equity math conversation might be clearing up judgments, and it's a homestead property, and we can file a notice of homestead. So the seller can keep all the money instead of having to pay judgment creditors in the sale. Ask if all the work on the home was done with permits, contractors, and final doubt. You walk through the house. You see that the property has brand new windows and it's an older couple and the rest of the house is falling down. Just ask them, was this done with permits? You can also go to the permit website for that county, for that municipality, and see if they did it with permits. But you're in the property and you're discovering this stuff as you're walking through. Brand new roof, house is falling down. Solar panels. This is a big one we see a lot lately. Solar panels on the roof and the house is falling down. Have the tough conversation. And it's not that tough. Did you do this all with permits? We saw one recently, a PACE loan. PACE loans, you guys? Does everybody know what a PACE loan is before I start pontificating on PACE loans? PACE loans were an anomaly. They are now, we probably have 2 or 3 PACE loans in my office for closing. They are real. Now I'm going to tell you something that lenders don't want to know, and that's PACE loans jump in lien priority to senior to primary mortgages. We don't have to get into that, but if you're a lender, if you're a hard money lender, if you know any hard money lenders or seller financing people, that can be very dangerous for them. FERPTA, ask your client at the listing appointment if they have a tax ID number, US taxpayer ID, social security number. If they don't, have the FERPTA conversation, refer them to a FERPTA agent. Easy to do. Head that ball off at the pass. If they expect they're going to keep all their money at the closing, best they know now. I know a ton of agents tell me, and it does make me, you know, I wish they did take a different course of conduct, but they tell me, oh, I'm going to wait till we get deep into the transaction and they won't back out. And I had that conversation with an agent last night. I don't know if that's the best way to do things. I like the devil you know as early as you can know it. You got to tactfully know how to talk about the topic and couch the topic in a way that's manageable and won't scare the client off, your seller off. But if they think they're going to walk out of the transaction with all the FERPTA money in their pocket and they owe 15% to the title agent that's going to go to the IRS, we did a whole show on FERPTA. Have that conversation early. Let them know they need to get a FERPTA agent working on their behalf early in the deal. Lots of FERPTA deals lately. There is another important piece of content or another valuable piece of content you could drop. Lots of sellers are foreigners and they're not real happy with the way things are going in this country. And we're sitting at the table with sellers and they're telling us, I'm not real happy with what's going on right now. We're getting out. And we've heard from, you know, the LGBTQ community. We've heard from foreigners. We've heard from a lot of people with that same message. We don't like what's going on. My wife always says, what are we going to do if things get bad enough? Where are we going? I would say we're not going anywhere, but there are people who are leaving. If they're Canadians and they're down here and they're not happy and they're selling their Canadian property, that's real. Look around the property. We talked about this a little bit ago. Look for deferred maintenance, new improvements, things that don't jive with the seller's story. So we had one transaction. This is another one we haven't seen lately, but we've seen it over the years quite a bit. Seller says it's a single man or a single woman, apparently single, and they say to you, you know, they're divorced, they're not married, whatever the case may be. And we find out shortly before closing, they're married. Something comes up in their lending package or something, and they find out they're married, and now we've got to get the signature of the spouse, or we've got to do a default divorce or something. That always holds up the closing. We had a really crazy one where the seller was married and they didn't consider themselves married, but they were actually married under the Indian tribunal. So they are a sovereign of a different country, not the US, and a US divorce did not divorce them in the Indian culture, in the Indian tribunal. That took 1 year to fix.
Jeez.
So have that conversation. And that was discovered. Oh, I remember why I mentioned this. And that was discovered because as the agent was walking around the property, they saw that on the mantelpiece, there were a bunch of pictures with this person who said they were single with a parent, you know, with a significant other and kids. And they said, after they got the listing agreement signed, they said, are you married? And they said, no. And then it later came up that they were. So check that box, have that conversation. If the seller is an LLC, corp, or trust, or an entity, set expectations early. The title company is going to ask them for the trust docs. They're going to ask them about the entity. They're going to ask them about all this stuff. I have had lately, we've had a rash of fake sellers. Fake sellers are sellers selling property that they don't own. We had two recently. We had one a while ago, and I'm reading more and more about it in title media. Make sure your seller is the owner of the property. We'll do it for you, but if you don't want to waste time and you want to get it ahead of time, they're typically vacant land deals or homes that have been vacant for a long period of time. That's the most common element. But if your seller is an LLC or a corporation or a trust, you're going to know that because you looked at the deed before you walked in, and you're going to have that conversation. You're not going to say you want a copy. You can say you want a copy, but I would couch it as the title company is going to need a copy of the trust agreement or relevant copies of the trust agreement. That also heads off some problematic transactions. So people say, you know, it's the trust for somebody and it doesn't name the trustee, and they say, oh, I'm Ryan Poole. I'm the trustee of that trust. Okay, well, we're gonna need a copy of that trust for closing. Oh, wait a minute. No, I'm the trustee. I'll sign an affidavit, but it helps ferret out problems ahead of time. If it's a condominium, ask if they have milestone inspections and SEERs done. Is the building lendable? Ask the mortgage broker. Don't forget to get your flood disclosures. Some agents are walking into them at the listing. I wouldn't do that, but don't forget about it. It's necessary in all transactions. I forgot about it the other day. But the condo thing is big and real, and we're doing one right now for a client with many million-dollar property. They have 2 properties they're trying to sell, and they're stumbling over milestone inspections and SERS. And this is a rare one. They have the SERS, but we can't find the milestone inspections.
Yep.
You're shaking your head, yes, Ryan. Tell me
Yeah,
more.
no, I've seen that. I'm dealing with that one right now. And
How can that be? What's the name of the building you're in?
well, this is called the Glens. It's down in Boca. They have the Sears, but I'm trying to, like, I've been back and forth with the HOA trying to get the milestone.
How can there be a SEERS a SERS in existence, a structural integrity reserve study, and not be a milestone inspection? And so as an agent, you don't want to be in the middle of the transaction trying to figure this stuff out. As a seller's agent, you want to be asking the seller for it immediately and be in the middle, trying to get it from the association. And as a buyer's agent, before you start getting too deep into the transaction, you want to make sure they exist. And so this particular transaction, they haven't even listed to sell and they're doing the due diligence ahead of time, but we're probably now 3 weeks into trying to get our hands on the milestones, and they have a SERS done, but you have to produce the SERS and the milestones. And in this particular transaction, we have a feeling that there might be a board that's a little overzealous in their desire to make life of the unit owners tough, if you know what I mean. So there are some boards that are assembled just to drive out unit owners. There are some boards
Yep.
that are assembled just to drive out unit owners, make life so expensive. But every value in your SERS has to be pinned to something in the inspection report. You can't come up with SERS budgets that don't reflect something in the inspection. So we're just trying to make sure the board is doing the right thing for the unit owners. And that's it. The what's in
Your
what
flood disclosure, don't forget it. Don't forget the flood disclosure.
I forgot